The Arizona Cardinals are already hard at work in what is set to be one of the busiest off-seasons in recent franchise history. Between the retirement of J.J. Watt, pending free agents such as Byron Murphy Jr., and the clearance of front office, including Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim, it's going to be a tough season for the Cardinals, and they're going to be entering a rebuild once again. Monti Ossenfort has been hired as general manager, the former executive for the Tennessee Titans and scout for the New England Patriots, so he has some interesting drafting history. The Cardinals obviously hold pick number 3 in this year's draft, as well as quite a few others, and they have a lot of needs to fill. So I'm going to be doing my best to go through the drafting process and try to create a mock draft. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to be using NFL Mock Draft Database Simulator. So if there are any unrealistic picks by the CPU, not my fault. It's hard not to take Jalen Carter. If I were to have a pick between Will Anderson Jr. and Jalen Carter, I think that I'd pick Will Anderson, but this mock draft has Anderson going number 2, so I'm going to go ahead and lock in Jalen Carter at number 3 overall. Defensive lineman from Georgia. That's obviously a position of need for the Cardinals anyway, so let's get on to the next pick here. There are a few holes that need to be filled now, as I'll reject this trade offer. Anthony Richardson just went to Houston, so they're having a solid draft so far. We need offensive linemen, we need edge rushers, and we need a running back. So Gibbs does come to mind here. He's at the top of the board. I'm not going to take a running back this high, though. I'm going to go ahead and take Felix Anudike-Uzomah from Kansas State, an edge rusher. I love the fact that the Cardinals have some depth at edge rusher, such as, obviously, Myjai Sanders, Cam Thomas, both rookies. Marcus Golden is not going to be around very much longer, I don't think. So that's who I'm going to go with. Stick with my gut, and I think it's mainly going to be a defensively minded draft for the Cardinals. Flores is the favorite to be the new head coach, so it would make sense. So I am going to go ahead and select Garrett Williams with my 3rd pick, 66 overall, from Syracuse. My next selection will be 96, and I think that is where I start going after some offensive linemen. Obviously, the first 3 picks were defensive players, so I am going to go ahead here. Look, Matthew Bergeron is still on the board. Running back from Texas A&M here, that's a possibility. I don't know the future of James Conner. I like Keontae Ingram. Obviously, Eno Benjamin being cut was a shock. I kind of thought he'd be one of the future pieces at that position. But I think I can get a running back down the board, so I am going to go with an offensive tackle here, another Syracuse player, Matthew Bergeron. On the clock once again right away at 104. This is where it gets interesting. Zach Evans, a running back from Mississippi. I personally really like him, but we also have an interior offensive lineman, Luke Weipler from Ohio State, and really it is still stacked. I think I could maybe end up with Chase Brown from Illinois, or even a Sean Tucker, another Syracuse player, down the board here. So I am going to go ahead and stick with the offensive line, go for an interior offensive lineman in Luke Weipler from Ohio State. I would go with this interior offensive lineman. Actually, Derek Parrish from Houston. He's a sneaky good pick. Zach Pickens from South Carolina. I'd pick again fairly soon, so I don't think it matters who I take here. Another corner would help, but I'm going to go with Parrish, another defensive lineman. get a B+ grade on that, so not bad at all for a 5th rounder. And then we come up once again here, and this is where I think we don't need Luke Schoonmaker. Hopefully Trey McBride is a long-term solution there. I'm going to take the interior offensive lineman, get a B+ on that as well. Henry Bainvalu, I probably butchered that pronunciation, but... And then I think with the last couple picks, I'm going to look for, or the last pick, on the clock here. I have a lot of positions of need still. I think I want to look for a running back. Trey Palmer, wide receiver. Chris Rodriguez, Jr., running back from Kentucky. As a sixth round pick, I don't think he's going to come in and do much. Juice Scruggs, also an interesting fit here. Stetson Bennett still available. Shocker. But yeah, I do think I'm going to go with Chris Rodriguez from Kentucky. I get an A+ grade on that, and that is the final Arizona Cardinals mock draft here. I like it. We're going to go through some of the players that we missed on, some of the players that went right before, and then obviously go and take a quick look at the Cardinals depth chart and try to plug in some of these players where they would go. So Jalen Carter, we filled defensive lineman, we filled edge rusher, we get a corner. Those top 3 picks, amazing. And then I really like being able to go and get 2 down-the-board players, per se, at offensive lineman, a nice offensive tackle, and interior O-line. Then Derek Parrish, a defensive lineman, obviously already got Jalen Carter, but all around, I think this was a pretty good draft for the Cardinals. Can't go wrong with any of these players. I'd be happy. So, Myles Murphy went first. I don't think that's going to be realistic, but it doesn't really affect who the Cardinals get at 3, which is good. So, Jalen Carter goes 3rd overall. Obviously, Kaylee Ringo would be a player that they could potentially trade down for. Cornerback needs some help, but that would be a hell of a fit if he goes to Detroit. Obviously, they have a defensive-minded coach and a young secondary that's very good. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba. Not big shocks in the first round. This one is Bijan Robinson going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't understand that. He would have been my pick at 34, I believe, but we miss out on a corner from Alabama, Eli Ricks. He doesn't look all that spectacular, so he's got some good gradings. I'm pretty much happy with ending up where we did with Garrett Williams. Let's check out his rankings. Yeah, he's 3-star recruit. Consensus goes 52nd. He's ranked as high as 21 in some of these mock drafts. Is ranked as high as 16th overall, so I think we got a steal there, especially needing a cornerback and getting him at 66. Then Matthew Bergeron. This is a guy that I'm very interested in seeing. I know that I've heard about him before. Seems pretty good for what the Cardinals need. And yeah, I know that there's quite a few people very high on him. So that there's a lot of people having him go first round. So we got a steal there as well. And then all around, I'm pretty happy with the way our draft panned out. We're here at the Cardinals depth chart right now. Obviously, a DeAndre Hopkins trade could be imminent, so maybe a receiver would have been nice to add to this class, but I think they're going to be able to pick one up in free agency for cheap, or finally be giving Greg Dortch the touches he deserves. I love Dortch. I love Antoine Wesley and Rondale Moore. So if all those guys can stay healthy and you have Marquise Hollywood Brown, don't think receiver is going to be that big of an issue. But on defense, on defensive line, we're adding Jalen Carter. You can't go wrong there. I love Zach Allen. Jonathan Ledbetter and Tristan Hill are interesting players. I think they'll be good depth going forward. Edge rusher was needed as soon as possible, so we are able to get somebody to go in place of Marcus Golden. Garrett Williams, obviously huge pickup there. The cornerbacks don't look too great. Slot corner Antonio Hamilton was not very good. Christian Matthew, I have high hopes for. He was a late round pick last year, so it'll be interesting to see how he pans out. Love Marco Wilson. Jace Whitaker, not a long-term option. Probably, if the Cardinals are looking to be somewhat competitive or competent this season, I don't think a guy like Whitaker is going to see much more than special teams. He's a good depth player to have around, especially if he's able to learn the new system that will hopefully be implemented on defense. And then offensive lineman, yeah, you gotta get somebody in for Cody Ford. I like Lacita Smith. Left guard is definitely something that was needed. We'll see how it pans out through the rest of the offseason. Obviously, you've got question marks with free agency, the biggest of which being Byron Murphy Jr., but I'm hopeful that Monti Ossenfort and whoever he hires as head coach will get the ship turned around very quickly. I loved his introductory press conference, so there's a lot to build off of going forward for the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm looking forward to the future, especially if it's built around number 1 Kyler Murray. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you would have changed in this mock draft. It's just a rough one. I mean, it's January. The draft is a long way away. You've got to deal with free agency. You've got to re-sign players first. And there's going to be a lot happening in the draft class itself. So, I don't know how many of these people are actually going to pan out. I don't know if any of these are realistic picks at this point. But it was fun to do for sure. And I'm hoping that Monti Ossenfort and the new staff will be able to implement some of these guys. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.